Alrighty, here we are. Welcome back to another Wisco Fanatics Wednesday. A lot of basketball discussions going on today. We have two Badger games and one Bucks game, and then Jake and I are going to go through some Milwaukee Bucks myth busting on today's show as well. But we're going to start with the Badgers. They had two games over the last week, so we're going to get to those two games right after the intro.
Welcome to another live episode of the Wisco Fanatics Show, where we discuss the Packers, Bucks, Brewers, Badgers football, and basketball from an optimistic perspective. Wisco Fanatics is brought to you by Cardboard Legacy, Wisconsin's most complete sports card shop. Buy, sell, grade, and consign all at their location in Oshkosh.
Alrighty, so starting with the Badgers at Purdue, this was Saturday. This was number 7 Purdue at Purdue, one of the toughest games that the Badgers had on their schedule. Mm-hmm. And the Badgers went into Purdue and came out with a win. So let's start with Mike. We'll start with the guards. What did you take away from the guards in the Badgers win at Purdue on Saturday?
Yeah, it seemed like everyone put their strapped on their big boy pants for this game. I'll go into detail here, but I'll start with Max Klesmit. I think you could argue we've talked about his shot selection this year. It hasn't necessarily been the greatest, but he still produced in this game, and you could almost arguably say this might have been his best game this year. In 33 minutes, he put up 17 points, 6 assists, 2 rebounds. Tyler, you mentioned in the chat on Saturday, he was 100% in his two-point field goals. So once he got inside the 3-point line, he was making things happen for sure. And he was plus 16, out of the Badgers, out of the group or whatnot. So that was good to see. He was making things happen. He's a big contributor to the assist category on this team, and clearly he's making a huge impact. As we progress throughout the season, whether it's not even scoring necessarily, but getting other guys involved. So he was a big part of that. And then just going into, I think, the unsung hero of this game. Jack Janicki, I have not brought him up too much as of late, more so since the Arizona game when he made a splash this year. But he was an unsung hero of this game. In 17 minutes, he had to step up due to the unfortunate ejection of Kamari McGee, which I will get to in a sec. But Janicki came in 17 minutes. He put up 11 points, 2 assists, 1 rebound, 3 of 4 from the 3-point line. And he had a nice backdoor cut over Foster Loyer as well to get things going for him. He was absolutely the spark they needed. When we needed a bucket, he decides to go and hit back-to-back threes to put us up 71-60 in the second half. And we didn't really look back from there. So absolutely impressed by the young man. For Badger fans that don't know, that this Jack Janicki is a redshirt freshman, and he's also a walk-on. This kid chose Wisconsin over scholarship offers from, I believe, Wake Forest, Harvard, off the top of my head, and a couple other. Yale was another one too, and a couple other mid-majors. So this is the guy that's kind of taken the Zach Showalter route. Starts off as a Badger, as a walk-on, and now soon-to-be scholarship player, I'm going to assume. When the season's over, however they distribute that. So, and Jack Janicki, another big call out I want to bring up. He was a big reason as to why he held one of the Purdue's leading scorers in check in this game, who was Braden Smith. Obviously wasn't the only one. I know Tyler is definitely going to talk about the other guy on him too that was on him. But, in 40 minutes, Braden Smith, he played 40 minutes in this game. He was held to 2 of 10 shooting with 6 points overall, and he came in averaging 16. So, and Jack Janicki was a big reason for that with guarding Braden Smith. So, another reason to give this kid some props. He had one hell of a game, and it was a huge reason as to why the Badgers decided to drop 94 at Mackey Arena and get a big dub. Then Kamari McGee, unfortunately, for any Badger fans that weren't watching this game, he only got 8 minutes in this game, did have 4 points and 1 rebound, and he did get ejected due to a very questionable call, fighting around a moving screen. A moving screen, by the way. It was definitely a moving screen, but basically, unfortunately, he's only 5'11" or 6 foot, and he's trying to fight through a 7 foot Trey Kaufman-Wren's screen, and his hand got into his groin area, unfortunately, and the refs decided that, we thought that might have been intentional. We have to boot him out anyway, even though he was just trying to make a basketball play, a basketball move, just trying to get through him and, try to pick up his man. So it was very unfortunate. However, I think that was kind of the kick in the ass, so to speak, that this team might have needed to propel themselves to get this game, to win this game. Then as far as the game goes, I mean, obviously, statement win. I think it's the best game that the Badgers have played all year, personally. As I said, I think we rallied behind Cam's ejection. The response in the second half was absolutely incredible. I feel like any sort of run that Purdue produced, the Badgers bounced right back like immediately. It was very, very special to see because, I brought up Janicki, I brought up Max Klesman, who dropped 17, Janicki 11. You guys are getting to your dudes here shortly, but it's without a question, we got 9 guys in this rotation that can go off at any point in time when you need someone to step up and hit that 3-pointer or get those extra couple of rebounds. So props to everybody involved, and just having 0 turnovers in the second half too. Impressive for sure with 3 total. Greg Gard said after the game, usually I think it was, what was it, three turnovers and 18. Dang it, I forget the stat line in front of me. I should have wrote it down. But anyway, John Tonje, no question, first team All Big Ten, pushing All-American status. I'll get the side comments for later too. But yeah, love this. Great game for the boys, and I'll let you guys say your piece.
So on the team as a whole, I love the ball movement that the Badgers had. That was quite possibly the thing that impressed me the most when you get into the fact that they only had 3 turnovers. They did have 1 in the second half. So 2 in the first half, 1 in the second half.
Oh, yeah.
Either way, I mean, you're talking 0 or 1. Like, nobody's going to be angry that they had 1 in the second half. Right. Also in the second half, the Badgers were 8 of 25 from the field. That's absurd. 8 of 25 from the field in the second half. Love to see that. What I wanted to appreciate about Max Klesman is the fact that he was the aggressor when John Tonje was on the bench. So I wanted to give Max Klesman credit for that. As far as Kamari McGee goes, before I jump into the Johns, I don't understand how you watch Kamari McGee eyeing the ball handler, and then again, like Mike's point on the height differential, determine intent to hit him in the groin area.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing they were talking about at halftime is you can't determine intent. So any shot that's near the groin area has to be, ejectable. And I don't agree with it, but you have to take some of the gray area out for the refs. They're already getting criticized for so much stuff. Being a ref is tough,
And that's my thing is if you're going to determine that, it should be a flagrant 1. If that's really what you're going to determine that it was a shot to the groin.
Coach Gard was saying, apparently the refs told him they had no choice but to because I don't know what the rule is.
Well, the rule that they were showing on the screen during the review was, quote, severe or excessive. I don't think that Kamari McGee's contact was severe or excessive.
Yeah. There was no real wind-up. That's where I would consider it excessive.
Everything looks different once you do it in slow motion, Yeah. But if it affects the groin area, I think that's what it was ultimately.
And then the fact that they called it an offensive foul on the floor too.
Yeah.
Because they saw him stand up and kind of stick his hip out.
Why are you not at least issuing you're not keeping that person? Maybe that's a rule, but why are you not keeping that as an offensive foul at the same time?
There were so many.
I guess I don't understand that.
To me, should have de-escalated that from a flagrant 2 to a flagrant 1, or even just a common foul on either player.
Yeah. Double foul, whatever. Let's go.
So I like what you said about it being kind of a kick in the ass for the Badgers because they were down 9 shortly after the Kamari McGee ejection, and they finished the first half on a 10-2 run to cut the lead to 1 point before halftime. So that was a big, big deal. Looking at John Blackwell, he missed a couple free throws early. Loved in the second half seeing him bury a 3 after a Purdue player tried to flop and draw an offensive foul, one of 3 times that they tried to do that this game. Blackwell just watches the guy fall down on purpose, and then buries a three on him. The thing that I really loved about John Blackwell, one, putting some absolute clamps on Braden Smith late in the game, following it up with a super, super tough mid-range bucket to push the lead back to 10 points, and just overall finishing with 3 really, really tough shots in the paint in the clutch time of the second half to finish with a quiet and efficient 11 points on 5 for 8 shooting. Then you have the man. John Tonje is the man. He got off to a slow start, but he stays aggressive. And what I really appreciate about that is the mental toughness that it takes to be kind of off your game at the beginning of a game, but understanding that there's a lot of game left and not letting it shrink your game if you're John Tonje. I'm going to talk about what he's done in the second half of the 2 games that we're going to cover this week when we get to the Illinois game, but super quick 10 points to start the second half. Had 11 points in 5 minutes starting the second half off. During the Tonje takeover, the Badgers went on an 11-0 run, had a really great pass to John Blackwell for the 10-point lead, made his clutch free throws. He finished 8 of 9 on free throws, 32 points, 22 of them came in the second half. He was 10 of 15 from the field, 4 of 9 from the three-point line, added 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and a block. And just there's nothing you can say about John Tonje that really underscores his importance for the Badgers. And like I said, the scoreless game that he had, it just wasn't to say that John Tonje wasn't a good basketball player, because obviously we've seen that the opposite is true, and it's a reason that I'm going to say when guys have quiet games to not sleep on them. Jake's going to give a great example here of these 2 games of a guy who had a quiet game and then a really important game. So John Tonje is the man. When we get to the Illinois game, I'm going to have 11 stats for you guys, but I'm going to let Jake talk about the bigs against Purdue.
Yeah, so let's talk about Nolan Winter to start out. So have a few notes on the bigs, and then I have some stats for you that actually back up Mikey's claim here about this being the best game that the Badgers have played this season. And honestly, there's one stat in here that projects that this is the best game that a road team has played in the last 15 years. I don't know if you saw that stat or not. I took a screenshot of an article I was reading earlier this week. It's freaking Wednesday. I read it on Sunday.
That's all good, man.
It was earlier this week, technically. Nolan Winter, 12 points, 5 rebounds, 0 assists. He was 4 of 7 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3. He's been so confident from beyond the arc, and he did some really good stuff in the Illinois game to kind of foreshadow a little bit here, using how dangerous he is behind the arc to his advantage. So he is progressing very nicely. He's going to be so good. I really hope that the transfer portal doesn't ruin the Badgers culture and we can retain some guys. Steven Crowell had 3 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists. Something that we need to probably give a little bit more credit to. We were doing good. This is more on me. His passing. He's doing a really good job of not only staying patient in the offense, but making the right pass. He doesn't just pass the ball just to get assists, but we know he's a really good passer from the post. He's doing a nice job getting passes to guys to set them up to get the assist. So he's doing a nice job of that, playing a really good pace. Hit a big time 3. He took 1 shot and he made it. He played within the offense
right away in the second half.
Right away, got it going for us. Yeah.
He was the jump starter. Adrian Amos, 2 points, 2 rebounds. He was 1 for 2, 0 for 1 from 3. Yeah, that is sad, Brad. Brad said it's sad we have to say retain with college players. It's a little sad, but it is the way that the world is now. So,
yep.
Carter Gilmore, man. I have something I want to say to him. He's been really good and underrated on defense this year, and he has always kind of been known as a defensive player in the first place, but that was because he had lack of offense. I feel like his 3-point touch this year is kind of overshadowed how good he is on defense this year. He's had multiple blocks this year where he comes from the weak side and just swats it about 9 rows up.
I feel like he baits other players into that stuff.
I think he does too. He did a
does.
really nice job in this game, getting one on Braden Smith. Braden Smith was driving from the left side of the floor with his left hand and thought he was going to be able to get a layup, and Carter Gilmore said, and he just blocked that thing, like I said, about 9 rows into the seats. So I think that his IQ on defense isn't respected as much as it probably should. He's always been pretty good at positioning. He's good at spacing now on offense, so he's definitely a key player. Got to talk about TKR on Purdue. Got to give him his flowers. He has such soft touch down there for a guy who plays so strong, and that's something that you have to appreciate as an opponent. Now, people are going to watch this game, especially as Badgers fans, and be like, "Oh my God, Steven Crowell's getting destroyed. He's terrible on defense." TKR's a good player.
He was a bucket.
20+.
This dude's practicing against 80 every single day last year. Yeah. You know,
right?
Imagine how much how much better you can get, in practice,
the adjustments that you make and stuff like that. Yeah, you're right.
Iron sharpens iron, right?
Yep.
So I just wanted to give TKR a quick shout out. He's not on our team, but he's a good player. You could come to Wisconsin next year if you really wanted to. If you don't have enough draft buzz, you could come over and wear Cardinal red and white. I would not
going to say no.
We're going to have an opening at center.
We are going to have an opening. I'm also lobbying for Owen Freeman from Iowa. Nobody wants to be stuck in Iowa, buddy. Come over to Madison, much more beautiful city, much better fan base. Yeah, come on over, man. We got way more than corn over here. So the stat that I read while I was reading this article on Sunday morning, the Badgers finished the game shooting 61.5% from the floor, had just 3 turnovers, and averaged 1.45 points per possession. Per former ESPN employee and college basketball stats guru Jared Burson, it's the first time a Division I team has shot over 60% and had 3 turnovers or less in a road game in 15 seasons.
Damn.
That is incredible. As if that wasn't enough, Wisconsin also made 20 of 22 shots inside the 3-point line, a 90.9% clip. That was also the highest 2-point percentage for a road team in Division I in 15 years. So, to Mike's claim, best game for the Badgers this year, best game for a road team in the last 15 years in general.
Yeah.
So on Wisconsin with that stat, tremendous stat there. Doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, and doing it against the number 7 team in the country.
Oh man, it felt
and
so
Mackey.
Good.
That's the hardest. That's top 5 hardest places to play in college basketball.
Oh man, I was so happy after Kamari McGee got kicked out. Not that I was happy about that, but then we started whooping their ass, and John Tonzio was hitting threes, and everybody was shooting the ball, and everybody was getting to the rim. They're making every single shot. I was like, oh yeah, this is justice.
And that post game, dude, that photo with all of them front and center with arms crossed.
That was tough.
That was sick. That was
Steve
sick.
said fire guard with his sarcasm. That's a perfect way to transition into the Illinois game, because I made a post after this that and being down early, they were down by 9 in the first half.
True.
Made a post after the Purdue game, and I knew there was going to be one person that was still like, "Ooh, they haven't been to the Sweet 16 in 4 years or whatever it is."
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I knew there was going to be one person that only has one thing that they put all of their chips on, and not talking about anything else that matters.
Yep.
Not about where the Badgers were picked to finish. Not about, the regular season Big Ten title, the Big Ten tournament title, Big Ten Coach of the Year, none of those things. Not to mention the staff that they've assembled. Bringing Kirk Penny and Greg Steemsma, those 2 are difference makers on Greg Gard's staff. So shout out to them. I'm not giving all of the credit to the assistants. I'm not giving all of the credit to Gard, but Greg Gard's coaching staff, Greg Gard included, they have done a fantastic job of revitalizing what Badgers basketball identity is this year. And it's that the Badgers can put up a shit ton of points.
Yeah. It's not your father's team. It's not your father's Badgers basketball team.
This is not Bo Ryan's Badgers basketball team.
No.
Yeah. Andrew said fire Gard, hire Gottlieb. Yeah, he's got some work to do over there.
Hey, they got to win this week.
They did.
Good for them.
They did.
They ended the 21-game losing streak. Let's go.
Man.
Yeah, he's got some work to do up there.
Well, maybe get rid of your podcast, or you just like give up that coaching job. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get off topic here, but you can't be a D1 head coach and have a podcast full time as well, and expect to like have good results. That's just me as a D1 coach. Like I get like how much work you still have to put in, even in the off season as well, whether it's recruiting, figuring out all the other shit that goes on behind the scenes. I was so against that. Once I heard that was happening, like I don't see it lasting long personally.
Yeah,
but
he's
that's
got
another
a lot of work to do. But
that's a
let's
story
go to the Illinois game, and Jake, use Stephen Crowell as an example for why not to sleep on somebody from one game to the next.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So I'm going to start with something that Nolan Winter and Crowell did together. First of all, Nolan Winter and Max Klesman played a really beautiful two-man game to get the first bucket of the game for the Badgers. That was beautiful footwork, good patience, and good toughness by Nolan Winter. Wanted to shout that out first of all. And he didn't make a three, but he took an early three that I thought spaced the floor for the Badgers. Stephen Crowell though, Nolan Winter, I said before, used his three-point confidence to his advantage. He actually cut off the three-point line yesterday, and Stephen Crowell hit him with a really nice pass in stride. That's an important part of this. You could throw a pass. It could be a good pass, be a good cut. But if you don't throw the pass in stride, like leading a receiver in football, nothing's going to matter. Because there was a guy right there for Illinois that could have, hacked him and stopped that entire play. But really nice pass by Stephen Crowell. But Crowell was fantastic last night. A guy who hasn't been scoring much as of late, but he has 20 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists, absolutely filling up the stat sheet. 70% from the floor, 3 for 3 from the three-point line. This was Stephen Crowell's coming out party. This is a big-time game. After the Badgers beat Purdue, I think that was the moment when America kind of went like, oh, Wisconsin might be back. Wisconsin might be a 3 seed moving up to that 2 line. Pretty soon here, who was it? Texas Tech lost last night. And
A&M did.
And A&M too.
Yeah.
Did Texas Tech lose too, right? I thought.
I know A&M did. I would have to look in Texas Tech.
I think Texas Tech did too, but that's at least one team that's ahead of us. I think both might be ahead of us, but so Badgers could be moving up to the 2 line. So America's kind of taking notice. So for Stephen Crowell, I talked last week, have somebody else other than John Tonje kind of be a consistent scorer, right? And that's the thing about this team is they're so deep that it could be anybody on any given day. We haven't even seen the Max Klesman go crazy game yet, which is insane. It could happen in March during the NCAA tournament. But Stephen Crowell was that guy this game, and he was taking really, really good shots, showing good toughness finally. And he was just a monster last night. I want everybody to respect Stephen Crowell. He's had a good career at Wisconsin, won a lot of games with us. Transitioning over to Amos, he's a guy that, like Nolan Winter, but on a different path. He's coming along really nice, man. I really like what they're doing with him, coaching him up. This goes back to Tyler's point of Greg Steensma, a former big man at Wisconsin, knows what it's like to play in the Big Ten. You got to be physical. Now, this is a new age of basketball, but you still have to show toughness in this conference, right? Being able to go on the road. Mike was talking about playing at the Mackey, right? You're going to have some big-time road games, and the Badgers still have another one on their schedule coming up here. That game against Michigan State is looming large. That could be for the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to need Michigan to lose a couple games here, but if the Badgers win that game versus Michigan State, they could get into first or second place, which is insane to think about, a team that was projected to finish 12th in this conference in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And they were talking about it on the radio on Monday before this game, but really not many people believe that this was possible for this team coming into this year. Maybe the players and the coaching staff, maybe a few of the parents, but there was really nobody else that believed that this could happen. I feel like we're an optimistic show, and we were only projecting 19 wins, 20 wins, right? I mean, they're at that mark already.
Yeah.
So good on them. Good coaching by them to get Amos on board. He started out rough, but he's really coming along nice. I think he's going to be a really good player for us. Carter Gilmore again. Mikey, you said it in the chat yesterday, and I was thinking it when you said it. I can't get over that he just shoots so good from behind the arc, man. That's insane to me.
That was literally 30 seconds in transition.
And he just pulls it. Just yak. You're like, now you kind of start to expect it, right? When you're watching it, you're like, oh, Gilmore's open. He's going to pull this, and it's going to go in.
Now he's mixing in pump fake and drives. Like,
I mean, this offense is insane. It could really, really, really go. I think that's all I had. Oh, I wanted to shout one more thing out. The Badgers points in the paint. They scored 48 points in the paint, and they only allowed 28. So plus 20 points in the paint. Love that.
Nice. Brad said he hoped the basketball transition from then to now is what they hoped, or what he hoped the football program was gonna do. There's a lot more pieces in the football program. Like, you're talking 90 guys versus like 18 to manage. So there's a lot more that goes into that. And I do still think the football program needed a lot more work than the basketball program did.
Yeah.
So it's I think in my mind easier to change the identity of a basketball team where you have 5 guys on the floor at a time that play both ends versus a sport like football where you have 22 guys on the field.
Coaching matters, and I think they have the right offensive coordinator that fits the Badgers fan base, in my opinion. I think the
identity that they want to have. Yeah.
It fits the kind of players we want up front too. So I think the football team is going to be a little bit better. The record might be pretty similar because the next year's schedule is freaking Jesus.
Andrew said the UWGB bandwagon is getting full. I'm assuming you mean for the girls basketball team.
Great point, Tyler. I sure hope that's what he means.
Yeah, the UWGB girls basketball team is legit.
I don't know if
they've won 17 in a row.
Yeah, they're
something
good.
Like that.
Yeah.
But you guys were bringing up Texas A&M and Texas Tech. Both of them did lose in the last week, as did Alabama.
That's right. I watched that. I watched Auburn, Alabama play. It was good. They like to run. That's
Auburn's so good, dude.
Auburn's Steve said the follow shooting is so big that'll matter in March, and the double bye and the conference tourney is there for the taking. Absolutely is, and
all the above.
Yeah, all the above. And Steve, I'm going to come back to your other comment in just a second here, but I wanted to pull up the Badgers in KenPom, and the Badgers are currently seventh in net rating in KenPom. They are 6th in offense, 40th in defense, so they are 7th in the net rating in KenPom. I mean, you look at a couple other teams, like the only 3 or 4 that are really higher than them as far as both go is Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida. I mean, you look at Tennessee, they're number 1 in defense, but they're 30th in offense.
Yeah.
And then you look at Alabama, they are 3rd in offense and 39th.
What's Iowa State at? That's a team that's on my radar.
They're 17th on offense and 12th on defense.
Because I think they have like a record of like 19-1 when they're like fully like healthy. And they're like, I was just curious. That's besides the point, but
yeah. Michigan State currently at 13th in KenPom, and then Michigan is at 20th.
Okay.
So the Badgers are certainly within striking distance for the Big Ten regular season.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Steve brought up Tanjay is the star that stirs the drink. He can get to the free throw line frequently and hits them and then drains threes. 2 games, and John Tanjay scored 43 points in the second half of those 2 games. He had 32 points against Purdue, 22 of them in the second half. He had 31 points against Illinois, 21 of them in the second half.
That's filthy.
He is
filthy.
Absolutely insane the last 2 games. 10 points in 10 minutes of the second half. Illinois cut the lead to 10. John Tanjay comes down and knocks down a 3. He was 10 of 12 at the free throw line, 9 of 15 from the free throw line or from the field. He is a couple really efficient games away from being the Badgers' first ever 50-40-90 player. He's at 48.5%. He's over 40% on threes, and he's over 90% on free throws. So he is this friggin' close to being 50-40-90. He needs a couple more like 60% shooting games, and he'll have a legit shot at it. There's very few guys that have done 50-40-90 in college basketball. I think the stat that I saw was like 13 ever.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Very, very few guys have done 50-40-90 in college basketball.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So, back-to-back 30 balls for John Tanjay. Now we got to get stats. Got to get stats going. Steve said he will also posterize you. Seems he has a full toolbox. He absolutely does, and I'm going to give Jake credit for saying this. Jake said he's Johnny Davis with a jumper.
Yeah.
He's maybe not as good as finishing through contact as Johnny Davis was, but he's pretty damn close.
Yeah, better shooter for sure. Maybe
better,
not quite
shooter.
there on the athleticism, but shit. I mean, that
Okay,
nitpicking.
I'm just going to defend myself real quick. I understand that Davis was more, athletic and Tanjay is a better shooter.
Downhill.
The thing that translates with me is how smooth they are when they're driving to the basket. They can both slither, get to the spot that they want. They can both throw that floater up. That's what I was like looking at. I was like, oh, dude, he's kind of like Davis when he just slithers through there smooth. And I mean, he had that step through against Purdue where I was like, oh my God, that was nasty, dude.
How he made, I know exactly what you're talking about. How he made it through that was like, what the hell?
That takes strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm definitely with you on the comparison. I understand it. So this came from Opta Stats today. On January 18th, John Tanjay went scoreless in 22 minutes. In 8 games since then, he has scored 201 points, 25.1 points per game. Only one other D1 player in the 21st century has gone scoreless in 20-plus minutes, only to score 200-plus points over the next 8 games. Either of you guys want to venture a guess who that player was?
Nope.
Oh God.
Insane,
I'm just gonna throw it out there. I know it's definitely not true. I'm gonna say Jimmer Fredette.
Jimmer Fredette. All right. Not a bad guess for a college basketball player.
I feel like it's like a point guard, bro. I'm gonna say like a random guy. You said how many years?
This would be in the 21st century. So since 2000, only one other player.
I'm gonna throw a random like North Carolina player in there, like Raymond Felton or something like that.
Steph Curry.
Oh hell no!
Oh no, shit!
I knew it was gonna be insane. I knew it. I felt it in my gut. I was like, it's gonna be insane.
So
wow,
John Tanjay just out here doing things that only Steph Curry has done.
I like that.
Obviously, you don't want to get held scoreless. The game in question, Steph Curry was being like face guarded by 2 different players. It was like a team from Maryland. They just double team face guarded him the entire game. Yeah. Davidson still won, but Curry was held scoreless, and then scored over 200 points in his next 8 games combined. Curry had he averaged 29 points per game in that next 8-game stretch, whereas Tanjay's at 25. But nobody else has done it besides now Steph Curry and John Tanjay.
Wow.
Also, John Tanjay, first back-to-back 30 balls since Michael Finley in 1994.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Also, the first player to have 4 30 balls in a season since Rick Olson in 1985-86.
Damn.
Keep them coming.
So
keep the stats coming.
Let's just keep John Tanjay going as far as this season goes. Now, also, the Badgers have hit 80-plus points 15 times in a season for the first time since 1970-71. If you still don't believe that Greg Gard has changed this team, you're just wrong at this point.
Yeah.
They have changed this team. The Badgers have scored 3 times over 90 points against Big Ten opponents this season. Over their last 400 Big Ten games, 3 times. Done it 3 times this year. Love when they show that on the screen. I'm going to look at Jack Ukonis' numbers from the December game to this game before I talk about John Blackwell. In December, the Badgers lost to Illinois. Jack Ukonis played 37 minutes, scored 24 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He was 8 of 15 from the floor, 4 of 8 from the three-point line, 4 for 4 from the free throw line, and had 4 turnovers. Last night, he played 24 minutes, scored 6 points, had 5 rebounds, had 0 assists, and had 7 turnovers. Badgers just said, all right, we're going to clamp Jack Ukonis and dare everybody else on your team to beat us. He took 3 shots. He made 2, missed his only 3-pointer, and was 2 for 2 at the free throw line. Greg Gard pulled a Bill Belichick and said, all right, we're going to take your best player out of the game and see if the rest of your team can beat us.
I saw Illinois fans crying last night. If we were fully healthy. All I commented was, man, you guys sound like Bears fans.
Wonder where that correlates from. Steve said you have to wonder what recruits or portal guys are now noticing guards' offense.
They are. I can tell you right now they are.
It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens with the departures of Tandre, Crowell, and Gilmore.
Yeah.
It's not going unnoticed. That's what I will say.
Yeah. So other than that, going into John Blackwell, he was aggressive and assertive early in this game. I like when he is playing that way. It draws extra attention. It opened the driving kick for him to hit Stephen Crowell in the first half for a 3, and in the second half for a behind-the-back pass to Stephen Crowell for a 3. He had really, I would say, pretty quiet 16-point game. Mm-hmm. He was 7 of 15. Yeah. He was efficient again. 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. This version of John Blackwell is a very, very good, efficient second fiddle to John Tandre's offense. And I love that for him. If he sticks around for another season, I know he's got NBA interest. If he sticks around for another season, he's going to get the keys next year. He's already being allowed to drive the car at times, but John Tandre's got the keys. John Blackwell could be the guy holding the keys next year.
I think Blackwell would be like a fringe first-round pick right now. I think if he stays another year and shows that he could run the team, he could potentially be like lottery, like end of lottery pick.
In that 10 to 20 range for sure.
Yeah. I think he can move up a few spots for himself, a little bit more money.
Yeah. And yeah, Brad, it is about money for some guys, but I mean, if you're like John Tandre is a perfect example of a guy that the Badgers brought in. Missed a big chunk of last season to injury. And the Badgers were like, hey, come play here. And it's worked out magnificently.
Yeah.
Well, the Badgers aren't going to be going and grabbing the top performing players from Duke and UConn and being like, hey, come to Wisconsin. Like, that's not how the Badgers are going to operate. They're going to grab guys from the lower teams who are just looking for opportunity and skill sets that fit the team. And skill sets that they feel that they can coach up.
Yeah.
And those are the guys that they're going to bring in. It's not going to be like trying to outbid other teams for players.
Agreed.
All right. Mike, how'd you feel about the guards last night?
I'm going to give a quick shout out with the whole John Tandre situation. Before the season started, Tandre was committed to New Mexico. So we got him to decommit from New Mexico to come to Wisconsin. I think we need to give out more props to Greg Gard. I think for that too. By the way, that's identifying a player that would fit your system. Take him from New Mexico and bring him to Madison. So John Tandre wasn't a high profile transfer due to his injury at Missouri last year because not many teams got to see him. 8 games he goes down. Thankfully, Max Klesman was the one who actually had a connection with John Tandre because when Klesman entered the portal, Colorado State was one of the schools that he was visiting, and John Tandre was there. So thankfully, there was that connection there going into it. But no, I think this credits the coaching staff for identifying a player too that isn't getting all the accolades, not getting recruited by the Dukes of the world, North Carolina, so-called blue bloods. But
Taylor, that should answer your question. He came from Missouri last year, but he only played 8 games. He was at Colorado State the 3 years before that.
Yeah. So
just
want to call. Yeah. 3 at Colorado State and 1 in Missouri, or is it 4 and 5? Because he's technically a 6-year player. I want to say.
Okay. So it was 4 years. 4 years of Colorado.
Yeah, it was 4 or 5, and then he got his injury settlement.
Yeah, COVID. Right. We're still in the COVID years. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
He had COVID.
Yeah. First off, snapping a 9-game losing streak to Illinois. Thank God we got the monkey off. We got the monkey off our back. That was good to see. I wanted to call up the guards. This fits with John Blackwell's in this category too. Tyler already brought it up, but I want to bring it up because I know Kamari McGee was a part of this. Klesman was a part of this. Holding Yakachonis to 3 field goal attempts total. That was absolutely insane. Putting the clamps down and forcing other guys to keep them in the game. Which, credit to Illinois. A couple guys did knock some shots down for him, but we have an offense now that is pretty goddamn fun to watch and pretty high power.
They want to let that number 13 left-handed big dude keep shooting. Let that dude let it fly.
Yeah. And the other who was their other guard? Jaw Gibbs Lawhorn. He was the guy that was knocking down some shots going last night that were, whatever. But no, I mean, besides besides the defensive side of things, it was actually pretty quiet for the guards for the most part. Max Klesman only got 23 minutes in this game, but I think that's a testament to, Jack Janicki getting a little more playing time now. Kamari's getting 20 plus minutes, but either way, 5 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, still finding ways to contribute. So not the worst night, but not the best night. Is what it is. And Kamari McGee, 22 minutes, 4 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. Jake talked about the rebounding before. Kamari McGee for, being a point guard, grabbing those 4 boards. I mean, that's big time, I think. So
I feel like if Kamari is at the combination of 10 points, rebounds, and assists, I feel like that's a good sign for the Badgers.
Yeah, that's actually
might be something to look into.
That way. That's actually, yeah.
I say smart things sometimes. Yay.
Yeah. Should look that up. But no, and I mentioned Janicki before. He definitely deserves some minutes coming into today. Got 11 minutes, didn't score, but he still contributed. He still got 3 assists, 2 rebounds, and 1 steal. So definitely still being active. Thankfully, we got other Badgers that can score for us, and end up with 95 points. But I think this game could have been, we could have won by 30, I think, in this game, because when you look at it, first half necessarily wasn't the greatest. We had 8 turnovers that turned into 11 points for Illinois, right? You take half of that out, we're damn near winning this. We're pretty much winning this game by 30. So, I thought we had a great defensive strategy for the most part. I mentioned it before. You hold Yakachonis, their best scorer, arguably, to 3 field goal attempts total. And yes, you want to make other guys, win the game for you. Ultimately, maybe you'll get away with it for a full game against our offense. Probably not. So I thought
0 assists and 7 turnovers is absurd.
There you go. I guess there was a little. This is nitpicking for me going with the whole turnover part of it. There was a little bit perimeter D that I think we need to work on a little bit. We did give up some threes. I think was due to miscommunication part of it. Towards the end of the first half, when they cut it to 6, when we were up by 12, they hit those back-to-back threes. And I think it was more so of a miscommunication thing. So it's just something that I saw that we might be able to work on a little bit in terms of perimeter D. But no, the confidence of this offense is through the roof. Ultimately, we have legitimately 9 guys that can come in, help spread the floor out, and can a 3 for you. The stat that I wanted to bring up, it's more so along the lines with the bench play. So in the combination of Kamari McGee, Gilly, Xavier Amos, and Jack Janicki, they are a combined 73 of 175 from the 3-point line. That's 41%. You need to guard these dudes when they're out on the 3-point line. So that's a big help in terms of what we like to do when you get a guy like John Tonje who loves getting to the bucket. That's a big part as to why that is open for him, getting to the hoop, getting to the free throw line, and getting 30 balls now every game. So it's definitely a props to this lineup that's in there right now. We legitimately have 9 guys that are capable of shooting the 3 and doing it somewhat consistently as a group. Ultimately, if it's not one guy, it sure as hell will be the other. So we're on the verge of getting a home regional game in Milwaukee, boys. I don't think any of us foresaw this going into this season. We said 20, 21 wins. Yes, we'll make the tournament and whatnot, but obviously, I think we didn't know much. I know I sure as hell didn't. I didn't know much about John Tonje. Not too much at all. He played at Colorado State, had a decent career. Did I think he was going to be doing this? Absolutely not. So it's just a compliment to the staff with development and some of these guys, well, not just John Tonje, Carter Gilmore, Kamari McGee, Max Klesman. I mean, guys that just buy in. They're not the best players, but they're the right ones that fit this system, and they ultimately just want to play for each other and win for each other. So got to stay hot, and I think Greg Gard needs to be in the Coach of the Year conversation.
So Brennan said he's a 3-level scorer, and it's a thing of beauty. He's fully ready for a march run and ready to roll with the punches. Couldn't agree more with you on that. He really is a 3-level scorer.
Not Brennan.
He doesn't do the mid-range quite as much. He really just wants to get to the basket or shoot the threes, which is, it's fine with that. Steve said, what's Freitag's story for 2026? growth. I mean, just getting better, getting acclimated. That's pretty much where I'm at with him.
If it's a status quo right now, I would say if Cameron Hunter still sticks around, it's going to be those two fighting for the starting point guard role. That's the most ideal situation, right? Unless they want to keep John Blackwell. If John Blackwell does stick around, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him, because primarily, yes, if you want to call him not a true point guard yet, that's fine, but he is the one right now. Let's not be mistaken. It's going to be interesting to see how he fits. Well, he's going to fit one way or the other, but do you move him to like the 2, the 3 again, and then you make Cameron Hunter and Free Take fight for that point guard starting role? It's going to be a big offseason for those two specifically, if they want to be a legitimate part of that rotation.
Brennan asked if Free Tag is allowed to redshirt.
That's a good question.
It would probably have to do with games appeared or minutes. Probably one of those is a stipulation, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, because obviously I know it's not one and the same with football. Football, you can't play more than 4. I know that.
Yeah.
Basketball is a really, really good question. I am not 100%.
In basketball, it's 1. So, no.
Well, there you go. Then
what?
Yeah.
1 game?
It's 1 game.
Holy hell, dude.
Apparently, the NCAA has discussed changing the rule for several years, and some say it needs to change. The NCAA has also considered other changes as allowing athletes to retain eligibility if they were paid to play outside of college sports.
Ugh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Oh,
which
well.
would be more for international players. But
we're going to ball this year, and then he's going to come into next year. He's going to hoop. He's going to get drafted. That's how it's going to go. That's
so obviously for college football, it's 4 games. So if they applied that same percentage logistics to basketball, it would be 10 games, and then I think he'd be able to. But that rule would have to change right away. Brennan said, I think you could start Blackwell, Free Tag, and Hunter. A 3-guard lineup has shown it can work for this year for Wisconsin. I'm sure that'll be within the realm of possibility. We'll have to be dependent on what else they bring in as far as the transfer portal is concerned.
Yeah, we're going to be losing some size with Crowell leaving. Winter would really be our only big man. And obviously Gilmore's leaving too. Amos isn't super big, but he's like the same size as Gilmore. So you'd probably they're going to have to go out and get another 7-footer. There's no way around it.
Center will be a top priority.
Yeah, that'll probably be the one thing that they go after. That'll be numero uno. Just like for football, it was D-tackle, right? In my opinion, at least.
So I pulled up Kamari McGee's game logs to look for that 10 rebounds, assists, points. Against Illinois, he had the 10. Purdue, he got ejected early, but he had 6 in 7 minutes. Against Iowa, he had 5 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. So he was at 9. That was a pretty close game. Against Indiana, he had 9 points, 3 rebounds, and an assist. Against Northwestern, he had 4 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists. So he got to 9 again. Against Maryland, he had 9 points, 2 rebounds, and an assist. Nebraska, 11, 2, and 1. UCLA, 3 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists. Under 10. USC, 10 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. Ohio State, 9 points, 1 rebound. Minnesota, 15 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Rutgers, 6 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists. It correlates pretty strongly. So the Badgers playing well. Is Kamari McGee having 10 points, rebounds, and assists?
I like that.
Brennan said Gorlock will see some minutes based on necessity unless you get a transfer big. I would strongly expect a transfer big.
Yeah, we got to see what Ricardo Greppi's made of too, but I fully expect us to go out and get somebody who's like ready to go to play immediately.
Yep.
You got to help out Nolan Winter. Definitely down low is what I would.
If they can let Nolan Winter kind of operate as the power forward again, I'm
and we still got to retain our current guys too. Like it's. That's numero uno with retaining Blackwell and Nolan Winter. That's going to be a challenge in itself. I think Coach Guard's talked about that. So yeah, we could have a completely different starting 5 for all I know next year. But as it stands now, I would say a big man. Absolutely, I think you got to go out and find somebody who's going to be ready to go.
Just another reason that I'm happy to have Penny and Steamsma on the staff as well.
Yeah.
Like Greg Steams was another guy that can go tell you, with obviously having NBA coaching staff experience, like here's what the Badgers are doing that can help you get to the next level. and Greg Steamsma as a former Badger big man himself. So he's a really big deal being on this coaching staff, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
All righty. Anything else you guys want to say on the Badgers?
Same schedule. Yeah.
They're going to go to
At least, hopefully. No, same schedule, Saturday, Tuesday again. And, we're going to do the same type of conversation or come back with 2 more wins and smiles all around, hopefully.
Yeah. All righty, Mike. Well, we'll let you go. Obviously, go Badgers, and we will see you next Wednesday. Thanks for coming on.
Later, fellas.
Oh, dude, the game against Washington next Tuesday is on Peacock. Can't wait to watch people cry about that. That's funny to me every time.
That's slowly becoming one of your favorite things to wait for people to complain about.
Dog, it's been too long, bro. It's been on there too many times for you to cry about it. That's my opinion.
All right. So now as we stay with basketball and just move into the Bucks only had 1 game in the last week because they played last Wednesday against the Timberwolves, and then they had the All-Star break. Not a ton to write home about the All-Star break. I'm not super invested in it because the players themselves aren't invested in it, so I didn't really invest myself in it. Other than that, after we go through the Bucks and the Timberwolves game, we're going to do some myth busting with the Bucks, and we're going to have some conversations on the Bucks as a whole. But let's start with last Wednesday. So the Bucks are playing without Damian Lillard and without Giannis, going at Minnesota, a team who is the 7 seed and arguably needing a win just as much as the Bucks did going into the All-Star break. The Bucks beat them 103-101 without Dame and Giannis. So what did you take away from this game?
First of all, got to say, the offensive flow for compared to the Thunder game, the offensive flow was worlds different. Mm-hmm. It was way better. They looked like a competing basketball team without Dame and Giannis. Taurean Prince, 11 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals. 3 of 5 on the 3-point line. He was tremendous. Kyle Kuzma, 19 points, 13 rebounds. We mentioned this when he got traded here. He was going to help with scoring, and he was going to help with rebounding. That is the 2 things that he did. He's been pretty good on defense as well. 4 assists and a steal, 7 of 17 from the field. 3 of those misses are behind the arc, so really he was at 50% with almost a 20-10 game with 4 assists and a steal. I mean, what more can you ask for from Kyle Kuzma? He's been playing very good. He had a plus 12 in the plus-minus area, by the way. Brook Lopez doing his job. He rebounded well in this game for everybody that likes to complain about it. And he only took 5 shots and scored 11 points. So everybody that talks shit about Brook Lopez, you could suck it because he played a really good game.
He's not going to score 20 a night. He's never going to be 20 and 10.
We don't ask him to do that.
That's not what his role is.
We're going to get into it.
I don't care if he has more blocks than points. That's what his role is. His role is to contest shots above all else.
So the starters overall had 54 points, 32 rebounds, 12 assists, 5 steals, and a block. That's your starters without Dame and Giannis. That's very good. Good balance scoring from everybody. Bobby Portis didn't have a tremendous game, but he was +1. Gary Trent Jr. again was out there hooping. I cannot say how I can't tell you how happy I am that Gary Trent Jr. is a Buck. It just feels right. And I'm not even saying this from like a spot of like arrogance because I wanted him. I'm saying it from like a spot of like building your roster, building the most competitive roster. He just always felt like to me like he was going to fit in well with the rest of our roster. And John Horst did a nice job, and he decided to listen to Wisco Fanatics one day, and we helped this. I'm speaking that into existence.
I hope he's listened to the show more than once, and we end up with Miles Turner this summer.
Hey, he's not to listen to another episode.
He does actually watch our show.
So, a few things before I let you go here. Kevin Porter Jr. He was good. He showed good ball handling. He showed good pace. He showed tough shot making. He had 11 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal. Made a big-time bucket at the end of this game that ended up tying it when it felt like this game was kind of slipping away from the Bucks in the final moments, but made a big-time shot. Also, I forgot to do this. Shout out to Brook Lopez for making his free throws. For everybody that talks crap about him, he's a good free throw shooter. He does
great free throws.
He does all the little things well. I don't understand how you can have a problem with him. That makes
because he's slow.
It makes zero sense in my brain.
He's a gigantic human. Yeah, he doesn't move super fast. Neither does Nikola Jokic. That doesn't make him a bad basketball player.
Yeah, he does all the little things well. AJ Green was not hitting his shot as I was talking shit about him last week, and then he decided to hit his shot in some big time moments. So good on him for hitting his shot when we needed it the most. Kuzma, really, the only thing I have to say about him, if he gets the 3-point shot falling, he's going to erupt. And this Bucks offense is going to absolutely skyrocket into new heights that we haven't seen this year. He's just got to get a couple of them to start falling. Start hitting it at that league average of 36%, which Tyler has brought up about 12 million times over the last couple of weeks. We're going to keep saying it so you understand that 36% is league average. So if somebody's shooting 37%, you're going to look at the number 37 and compare it to 100 in your brain and be like, wow, he's not good. 36% is average.
Yep.
So.
And it doesn't mean that like 34, 35 is trash either.
Yeah.
That's below average. But again, you're talking about 450 players in the NBA.
Right.
The amount of players that are in that probably 35 to 38% range is probably a pretty thick group of players.
Probably a majority, I would say. And another shout out for Gary Trent Jr. I have some numbers on him coming up from his ability to shoot from beyond the arc because he has been elite for the last month and a half here. But I can't talk about it enough. And we're going to talk about John Horst coming up here. Tyler has some good numbers on that. But you're talking about Kuzma, Brook Lopez, Prince, Bobby Portis. You're talking about a lot of these guys, major role players in this team, and John Horst has done a really nice job maneuvering between the money and kind of, playing chess behind the scenes, and done a really nice job building this roster, in my opinion.
So looking at the Bucks as a team, and we're going to talk about, I'm going to throw another guy when we get into just a second, but the Bucks were 12 of 30 on threes. That's 40%. Very happy. That's nice work. I'll take that every single game. Steve said that's also not the average for guys his size. That's a great point.
Good point.
I will actually look that up and see what I can find for 3-point percentage on guys that are, I think he's listed at 6'10", but we'll call it 6'9".
Yeah. Nicely done, Steve. Always being smarter than me. I appreciate it.
Steve, you want to be a co-host on a podcast? Taurean Prince and Gary Trent Jr. were both 3 for 5 from the 3-point line. Taurean Prince, a very, very stat sheet stuffing night. 11 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. So a very good night for him. Looking at the Bucks as a whole, 12 turnovers, not bad. That's kind of right in that gray area that I'm okay with. Allowed 14 points off turnovers. Again, playing without Giannis, that's going to hurt your transition defense a little bit, but it is what it is. So the Bucks are without Damian Giannis. Timberwolves are without Randall, Dante, and Conley, but they still had Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, and 6th man of the year, Naz Reid.
Yeah.
So it's not like the Timberwolves are playing without their 2 best players and no other good players because they have guys. They were in the conference finals last year.
Yeah.
The Anthony Edwards against the Bucks, 1 for 4 from the field against Ajax, 1 for 5 from the field against Gary Trent Jr., and 2 for 6 from the field against Kevin Porter Jr. Kevin Porter Jr. played some very good individual defense, especially in the fourth quarter of this game. And I'm going to say something might be kind of a hot take given that we've seen some good Ryan Rollins games over the course of the season. But I believe that as Kevin Porter Jr. gets more acclimated to this team, he may take the backup point guard role from Ryan Rollins. And I don't think it's a guarantee that Ryan Rollins gets the Bucks open roster spot.
Yeah.
I think it's a possibility that the Bucks keep an open roster spot. If the Bucks want Rollins for the postseason roster, he just has to be added to the roster before the end of the season. So it's not like there's like a deadline in March or something like that. They can wait as long as they want, as long as he's put on the roster before the end of the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a possibility that they leave that roster spot open for about as long as they can to see what other players end up bought out or if there's anybody that they want to bring from the G League.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, Kevin Porter Jr. played a pretty strong game both on both ends of the floor. I'm very interested to see how his role continues to grow as he spends more time with his teammates and the coaching staff and obviously gets more acclimated to the systems offensively and defensively. Going to Kyle Kuzma, I really, really like what he brings to the team athletically. And I understand he's not as good of a scorer as Chris Middleton. I understand that. He's not as good of a shooter as Chris Middleton. I understand that as well. But what he brings to the team is speed. He brings a lot of speed. And people kind of clown Doc Rivers for saying that Kyle Kuzma is a guy that can bring the floor up the way that Giannis does. He's not wrong. Doc Rivers was not wrong when he said that. I was a little skeptical of when he said it, but he's not wrong. Kyle Kuzma grabs rebounds, and he is gone. I'm very, 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 very interested to see what a Kyle Kuzma, Giannis Antetokounmpo transition looks like.
With Ajax.
With Ajax. You have 3 dudes that could like jump high enough to go through the rim.
Love that for us.
So I'm very, very interested to see what that. Now, with that comes a little bit of turnover trouble. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm a guy that's kept track of turnovers since we've started this show. It's a big thing for me as far as basketball is concerned. I understand that with this play style, with this speed, this take and go type mentality that Kyle Kuzma has, it's just kind of one of those things we're going to have to live with to a degree. Now, I'm not saying we need to just accept that Kyle Kuzma is going to be turnover prone at times and he shouldn't work to improve it because he absolutely should. But it's something that comes along with his play style. So it's just something that I don't want Bucks fans to be like, oh my God, we traded for this guy and he's averaging more turnovers a game than Chris did. He's playing with the ball in his hands. He's going to play with the ball in his hands more. He's going to put the ball on the floor more than Chris did. So I just don't want to get into a point of trying to compare the play styles and the numbers of Kyle Kuzma and Chris Middleton so closely that we lose what Kuzma is bringing to the team.
For people at home that don't understand just the tiniest bit of difference what pace does, I'm just going to tell you, we're going to get into some numbers later about pace, and it makes a major difference in the Damian Giannis connection.
You want to just move right into it? I mean, we can start talking about it. I mean, if we talk about pace specifically, I mean, you look at the easiest ways to score baskets, it's in transition. It's always in transition. There's less guys back on defense. Usually somebody ends up open because everybody's kind of scrambling around trying to find who's going to cover everybody. Yep. That's how you get layups. That's how you get open threes. Like scoring in transition is always the easiest offense. It's always the first option on offense is to score in transition.
Yep.
So having a guy that can help you get into that quickly is something that I think is very, very beneficial to the Bucks. Obviously, it's something that they get better at with youth as well. And we'll see. This is one of the myths that I'm going to bust is talking about young guys and Jericho Sims. Steve brought up Jericho Sims and his 44.5-inch vertical. Yes, Clyde Frazier was praising Sims when on Marcus Johnson's podcast. He's a guy he's been here for a couple weeks, about a week and a half, and people are right back to the Doc Rivers is a bad coach because he's not playing young guys. Using Jericho Sims as the only example. Andre Jackson Jr. has been in the starting lineup for like 3 months now. AJ Green is a focal point of the Bucks offense. Doc Rivers is playing the young guys. Ryan Rollins has played a ton of minutes. He overtook DeLon Wright, a 32-year-old veteran. Doc Rivers is playing the young guys. He's just not playing the one young guy that you want on the floor.
Yeah.
So it's not a generalization you can make because Doc's playing the young guys.
It's another facts over feelings situation, Tyler.
All of these myth-busting things are going to be facts over feelings.
They are.
Some of them are going to be video evidence over feelings. We're going to get to Brook Lopez. Other things on Doc Rivers as we're getting into some of these things is the Bucks are 5th in the East. They were picked to finish 6th. They're a game behind the Indiana Pacers for the 4 seed.
Yep.
And then you're looking at the Knicks, the Celtics, and the Cavaliers ahead of them after that.
Yeah.
So the Bucks are pretty firmly in the second tier of the Eastern Conference, but they're right there with Indiana for the 4th seed. I don't think they're in a super bad position to be in, especially when you consider the fact that they started 2-8.
Yeah.
If you look since the 2-8 start, they are 27-16 since then. Of the 24 losses that the Bucks currently have, a third of them came in those first 10 games, and 9 of them came as a result of the first or the second night of a back-to-back. So that's 38% of their losses came on the first or second night of back-to-backs. Guess what happens in the playoffs? No back-to-backs.
That's true.
Steve, you're going to love this whole segment, I bet. So the Bucks are 12th in scoring at 114 points a game per game. That's higher than the Lakers, higher than the Suns, it's higher than the Warriors, it's higher than the Timberwolves. They are 12th in opponents' points per game, higher than the Lakers, higher than the Knicks, higher than the Pacers. They are 7th in field goal shooting, 2nd in three-point shooting, and 29th in free throw shooting, but we know why that is. They're in the middle third in most other categories like assists, turnovers, rebounding. They're in the middle of the pack and all of those other things, but overall they are better than other teams offensively and defensively than teams that you would expect to have better records. Like the Lakers are a perfect example. The Lakers have a pretty damn good record, but the Bucks score more points and allow fewer points than they do. So I believe this team is going to finish better than what the general public feels like they are right now.
I think they're better than their record, in my opinion, too.
Yeah. Like that slow start is looming kind of heavy. If they were 5-5 in that stretch and they were sitting at 32-21 right now, firmly planted at 4th in the East.
Yeah, having some different discussions, that's for sure.
And that's just 500.
Yeah.
They've been 27-16 since that stretch.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at that, now they got to win at Minnesota without Damian Giannis before the All-Star break. And like I said, Minnesota is the 7th seed in the West right now. They needed that win too.
Yep.
We talked about the not playing the young guys thing. I don't really know what else you want the Bucks to be doing. They've been playing without Giannis since February 2nd. They're 2-3 in that stretch, and one of them was on the second night of a back-to-back. Steve said 27-16 is a 63% win clip, extrapolated out to a 51-win season if not for the poor start. Thanks, Steve. So I don't know. I'm not really in a bad position. I don't really have anything to majorly complain about with Doc Rivers.
I agree.
All right. So you have what? You have 2 segments on some myth busting, or 3?
I have some numbers on Brook Lopez on defense, some numbers on Dame on defense, some 2-man lineup stuff I want to talk about. I wanted to just talk about best 5-man lineup because I thought it was pretty surprising. Going to give Bobby Portis some love in that. And then I'm going to start with Gary Trent Jr. I wanted to give people an idea how good he's been. So for everybody who knows, and everybody who doesn't know, the Bucks have 2 of the top 10 3-point shooters in the NBA on their roster. Mm-hmm. And they were both free agent signees this year. Taurean Prince is 2nd in the NBA. He was 1st for a little while. He fell down to 2nd. And Gary Trent Jr. is 10th at 42.9% over the last month and a half. So this is from their first game in January to today before they play their next game tomorrow. They have a doubleheader. They play the Clippers and the Washington Wizards on Friday. Friday might be Chris Middleton's Wizards debut, by the way. So tell me you can't get romantic about basketball because that is storybook right there. Getting back to Gary Trent Jr., since the beginning of January, he has made 52 of 115 of his 3-point shots. That is 45%. I want people to understand that is absolutely ridiculous. He has been a flamethrower. He has had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He has had 7 games where he's shot at least 5 3-pointers. So that's tremendous stuff right there. Now, I'm going to go into some of my 2-man lineup stuff real quick, my boy. So first, I'm going to give a shout out because the best 2-man lineup, I talked about Gary Trent Jr., the best 2-man lineup on the Bucks, if you go by net rating, is Giannis and Gary Trent Jr. They have a net rating of plus 16.4.
Damn.
That is sick. For anybody who doesn't understand what that means, you take the offensive rating and the defensive rating, do some simple math. Their offensive rating with Gary Trent Jr. and Giannis is 127.4.
Oh,
that is ridiculous, dude.
So their defensive rating together is what, 111 then?
111. Even.
So essentially what that boils down to is that per 100 possessions, two-man lineups featuring Giannis and Gary Trent Jr. would outscore their opponents 127 to 111.
That's sick.
Love that.
Sick. So Giannis and Dame, as a two-man lineup, they have a net rating of 4.2 overall. And at home, I wrote this down, their net rating at home is 11.7. So they're really good home cooking in Milwaukee. They average 119.3. That's their offensive rating, I should say. And they have 107.6 defensive rating at home. Overall, they have 116.2 and a defensive rating of 112. So offensive rating averages on offense is 115.7. So they are above the average offensive rating. And the defensive rating is 115.3. They are at 112. So they're below the defensive rating, above the offensive rating. So people, I got to tell you, I was looking at pace, and I looked at last year. I looked at Damian and Giannis last year. They played at a quicker pace last year. They played at a 103.37 pace. They scored more points. They had a higher offensive rating, and they had a lower defensive rating. That equated for a better efficient field goal percentage at 59.3. This was last year. This year, they're at 57.7. So when you break it down, this is the kind of stuff that the GM has to go through, the coaching staff has to go through. When you break it down, and I'm not trying to shit on anybody, but you look at a trade, Chris Middleton for Kyle Kuzma, right? What's all the things that we just said about Kyle Kuzma? He rebounds, and when he grabs the ball, he's gone. Tyler's been talking about that for the last 2 weeks. So he's trying to play at a faster pace. You look at Damian Giannis' numbers, when you compare pace, they're way better playing at a faster pace. So going from a guy, Chris Middleton, who obviously has been slowed down by injuries, it's really sad to see him, kind of go out like this. But injuries take a toll on your body, obviously, just like a regular person. But these are world-class athletes. People talk about it all the time. Chris Middleton's out there trying to guard some of the best athletes in the entire universe. So when he's playing at a slower pace, it slows down Damian Giannis, obviously, and that's kind of hurting their offensive output. But they still boast a really high assist percentage at 60.9 assist percentage. That's crazy. And a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. So they're still shooting the ball efficiently. Their offensive rating is good. They're finding each other in the right spots. So overall, they've been really good. Now I'm going to talk about some best five-man lineups. I'm going to pass it over to you, and then I'll talk about Dame and Brook defense later here. Yep. But the best five-man lineup on the Bucks, this is crazy.
Can I try to guess it?
Yeah, try to guess it.
I'm going to say Dame, Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, Bobby, Giannis.
Nope. Dame, Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green, Brook Lopez, and Bobby Portis.
Really?
121.8 offensive rating, a 99.6 defensive rating for a net of 22.2.
Does it tell you how many minutes or possessions they've played together?
They played 121 minutes together. So I was shocked. I was like, Bobby. I was expecting Antetokounmpo in that slot, right?
That's very interesting.
That is pretty interesting. Now, I think that obviously Giannis gets – I think this could sound like an excuse, but I think that it's true. Giannis gets left on the floor, and they may put some other people in, like a Ryan Rollins. And I'm not trying to shit on anybody, but they may put some other lower players on the totem pole in with Giannis because they figure that Giannis can carry the offensive load. He's so good at defense, he'll make up for some things. So I think that may be a factor, but AJ Green is playing some tremendous defense at times. Gary Trent Jr. Dame is better on defense than people realize. We're going to talk about that shortly. And Brook Lopez is better on defense than people realize.
Yep.
So just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was really interesting that five-man lineup had the best net rating on the Bucks.
It's interesting. So, Steve, unfortunately, the NBA website only gets so specific with three-point shooting, so it only gives me 6'7" and up or 6'10" and up, and Kyle Kuzma is classified as 6'9". so I can't search by 6'9" and up. He is currently in the bottom quarter of guys that are 6'7" and above, but if you go 6'9" and above, he'd be kind of in the middle of the pack. Like, he'd be just above Jonathan Isaac. He's above Jonas Valanciunas, Alperen Şengün, DeAndre Ayton, Giannis. So, like, he'd be above those kind of guys. Those guys are mostly centers, but he'd 3% behind Paolo, 3% behind Alex Sarr, a very top draft pick. He's 4% behind Anthony Davis. Like, he's 4% behind Franz Wagner. He's not far off of some of these other guys that play like the stretch 4 type positions. So if we just get him making 1 out of 3 threes per game in that like 2 for 6 range, and he has a couple games where he goes 3 for 5, 3 for 6, his numbers are going to creep much closer to that league average number.
Yep.
What the average is for players in general that are over 6'9", again, it would be, I can give you the numbers for over 6'7" and try to find that. But overall, it's not a crisis. Again, as far as the Bucks scoring, transition is going to be their best option. They have one of the scariest transition basketball players of all time on their team, and a whole bunch of guys that you would be okay with trailing for 3.
Yep.
You talk about guys, when the opponent's defense all sucks down to the paint to try to stop Kuzma, Giannis, and Ajax. You want to throw that in there. You have Dame and Gary Trent Jr. and Taurean Prince and AJ Green and Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez all trailing the floor behind those guys to just kick the ball out. And I trust all of them to make the extra pass, except for maybe Bobby Portis, when the ball gets swung to them and there's another guy more open than they are.
Yep.
So, yeah, Steve, it's in his worst shooting season. I think his career average is right around 35%. So if he's around 35% and he's 1% below the league average from the three-point line and he's not taking that many, I'm not going to throw a fit over it.
Agreed.
Now, let's talk about John Horst. So, a lot of complaining going on around this year's trade deadline. And now I understand the Bucks didn't make some huge all-in Jimmy Butler type move during this season, but there was such a large part of the fan base that cried that Chris Middleton needed to be gone. And then a large part of the fan base saying that's all you got for Chris Middleton. You can't have both. You can't say that Chris is terrible, washed, useless, and then cry that John Horst didn't get enough for him. Like, I mean, if you have something you don't want, why would you be expecting people to bang your door down with offers that would blow you away? Like, what sense does that make? Not to mention that John Horst already turned Greg Monroe, that Steve just brought up, into Eric Bledsoe, into Drew Holiday, into Damian Lillard. We have Damian Lillard on the Bucks.
That's one of the craziest freaking tree branches.
That's probably the most shocked that I have ever been in my entire life as far as sports are concerned, pertaining to Wisconsin.
That's fair.
I don't think I've ever been as shocked as I was as finding out that Damian Lillard was coming to the Bucks.
I remember exactly where I was.
So do I. So we get to that. There was no way that Horst was turning Chris into like Kevin Durant or something like that. You have to take what other teams are willing to give you. Yep. So not only did Horst get Kyle Kuzma, who is giving things to the Bucks that the Bucks needed. The youth, the athleticism, the rebounding athleticism. We talked about all that. But also helps the Bucks get younger, helps them get under the second apron, which is going to help them this summer. It's going to give the Bucks this summer access to the 2032 first-round pick that if they had finished over the second apron, they would not have access to. They wouldn't be allowed to trade that pick. So now coming into this summer, the Bucks are going to have access to 2 first-round picks, not just the one.
Mm-hmm.
They're also going to be able to sign players for max contracts that aren't already on the team. That's something that they would not have been able to do over the second apron. Please, Miles Turner. Times 10. Then overall, people complained about the trade deadline that they got Kyle Kuzma, Kevin Porter Jr., and Jericho Sims. And that was it. That's the big all-in. Again, I said this when the trade deadline first happened. This is kind of more of like a soft all-in, freeing up the team to be able to go heavily all-in next season. Now, I understand people don't want to hear that because Dame and Giannis aren't going to play forever, but they're going to be playing next year.
Yep.
Now, Brook Lopez might not be playing next year, whether it's because the Bucks decide not to re-sign him or he retires, both of which I can see being the case.
Yeah.
The Bucks are going to look to get younger at center, even though we're going to talk about Brook Lopez and what he does for the Bucks in general.
Mm-hmm.
If they decide to bring him back for a much cheaper deal, I'd be interested in something like that. But the Bucks are going to be making a lot of moves this summer.
Yeah.
One of the other things that John Horst did was bring in Kevin Porter Jr. Now, I understand not being a fan of him off the court, but we're talking strictly on the court. And now people want Kyle Porter Jr. playing the backup point guard over Ryan Rollins.
Yep.
Which I can get on board with. Like, I can get on board with that part. But again, the amount of complaining about John Horst is not equal to the amount of people wanting players that he acquired on the court more. So in my mind, it's you see people complaining about the players acquired and then also wanting those players to play major roles. To me, it just sounds like people are constantly looking for things to complain about.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you from personal experience that the opposite is possible. You can look for things to like about the Bucks. I can tell you you're going to enjoy the team a lot more, and losing is going to affect you a lot less.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always have to be like looking for things that you can constantly be unhappy about. You can do the opposite too, and you can look for things to be happy about. Losing Chris Middleton hurts like a son of a bitch. It sucks.
Yep.
He's been here for over a decade. It sucks. But Jake and I have spent a large portion of our Bucks segment here talking about the things we appreciate that Kyle Kuzma is bringing to this team. So with that said, we can talk about a couple of the guys that are perceived as bad defenders. And let's start with Brook Lopez. Jake, I'm going to let you talk about Brook Lopez, and then I have a stat that I want to give about him. And then we'll talk about his rebounding before we go into Dame, and we can end with Dame.
Okay, so I wrote down, and this is for Dame and Brook, I wrote down defensive field goals made, defensive field goals attempted, defensive field goal percentage, and field goal percentage, and I wrote it down for overall 3-point, 2-point, less than 6 feet, and less than 10 feet. So overall, Brook Lopez, defensive field goals made, 8.5, defensive field goals attempted, 18.6. So gonna transition this to contested shots. Brook Lopez leads the NBA. He's led the NBA for a few years here.
He leads it by a lot.
He does in totals. In terms of average, he's at 13.5 contested shots per game. It's number one in the NBA. He's been number one for like 3-4 years running now. Contested twos. Out of those 13.5, 11.3 of those are contested twos. It's no secret that Brook Lopez plays a drop coverage, and he's known as the rim protector. Now, this all works having another 6'11/7-foot guy behind him who's a super athletic Greek freak. But Brook Lopez still does his job to a T. He does his job to a T.
We're going to have video examples of him doing his job.
What he's asked to do, he does good.
Yep.
Now, his defensive field goal percentage, this is the amount of field goals defended, right? The percentage of field goals defended, 45.9%. So literally almost 50% of the shots that people put up on him, he's guarding them.
Yeah.
I don't know what else you could ask him to do. People are shooting 48.6% on him. It's a little bit of bad luck.
Not honestly, to mention that they're all closer to the basket.
True.
I mean, you talk about like the average paint percentage for the NBA, it's probably around 60.
Well, here's the thing. So you get into 3-point shots. He's defending 38.3% of them. People are shooting 35%. So they're under the league average.
It's below average.
You talk about 2-point shots. He's defending 49.1% of them. People are shooting 55%. It is what it is.
I feel like it's probably around 60%. I'll see if I can find it.
Less than 6 feet. He's defending 57.3 of it. People are shooting 63.4%. They're close to the rim. All Brook Lopez can do without fouling is just put his hands up, be there, and contest it, right? And again, he's doing exactly what he's asked to do. Less than 10 feet, he's contesting 54.9 of it, and people are shooting 59.7% on field goal percentage. So just talking about Brook Lopez defense, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. Having Giannis behind him makes everything kind of work, but he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's contesting twos, contesting threes, doing his job.
NBA average field goal percentage is 46.5. 3-point percentage is 35.9. That's 36. I can see if I can find it for paint, but the league average field goal percentage is 46.5.
Okay, so people are shooting barely above that, but I can promise
You're
you,
talking 2% over the average.
I can promise you that this is a fact.
The majority of them are coming from close to the basket.
Right. Nobody is contesting more shots than Brook. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
So he's contesting the shots, and Tyler has talked about this before. I've got on the bandwagon as well. Great offense beats great defense every single time. So if Brook Lopez is there or not, if people make the shot, they make the shot. He's done a good job doing what he's supposed to be doing. Now, on top of him playing drop coverage, he also boxes out a lot, and people talk about his rebounding all the time. I don't understand it. You want to talk about pace. I think that your 7-footer, who's the slowest player on your team, getting the rebound would mess with your pace and mess with the flow of the offense. I would think that you'd want a guy who's one of the scariest fast break players in NBA history to get the ball so he can go. Don't you think that would be how that would work?
Yes, it would. It would be exactly how it would work. If we're looking at league average for within 5 feet, it's going to be around 64%.
Okay,
if you're looking from 5 to 9 feet, it's around 49%.
Oh, okay. So people are shooting much better at the 10-foot range, but he's below the average on the 6.
48% in those areas where a majority of his contested shots are coming from. I have no complaints.
Yeah, neither do I.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about Brook Lopez?
No, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Okay. Then let's talk about I have, I think, like 4 or 5 examples here of Brook Lopez doing things that don't show up in stat sheets. And this is why you have to understand the game and you have to look beyond stat sheets and you have to look beyond your own confirmation bias. Because if you are trying to see plays where Brook Lopez doesn't get rebounds, that's all you are going to see is plays where he doesn't get rebounds. And you need to be able to look beyond that bias, and you need to be able to be honest with yourself and say, am I seeing what is actually true, or am I trying to see only what my feelings are telling me is the truth? It's a hard thing to do, but it is absolutely an essential part of personal growth.
I agree.
To be able to self-audit yourself and say, are the things that I'm thinking actually true? Or am I just trying to confirm what I already feel without being open to other things?
Mm-hmm.
Steve said, I don't know the numbers, but I'd say the Bucks point paints allowed is not a problem. Credit to Brook. I can pull that up as well and see if it is a problem. Other than that, let's look at Brook Lopez. So doesn't count as a rebound. Bobby gets the rebound in that possession.
Yep.
Brook Lopez did the boxing out. He's the one that got a hand on the ball. Bobby Portis gets the rebound. Brook Lopez doesn't give a shit about this rebound. All he's doing is boxing out so that Dame or Giannis can grab it and start their offense. And what do you know? Giannis gets a transition and one out of it.
Oh, wow. That's weird how that works.
Oh, but Brook Lopez didn't get this rebound.
He doesn't give a
Damian
shit.
Lillard got it. And they had transition offense, and Giannis scored and got an and one in transition. Boxing out, tapping the rebound to Giannis. You're saving time off the shot clock here. Like, again, I understand. If you're only seeing what you want to see, you're going to think that Brook Lopez is useless. But please watch and understand the games. Brook Lopez does not get a rebound for that.
No.
Giannis does. And I'm not saying that Brook Lopez is inflating Giannis' stats or anything, but Brook Lopez does not give a shit about what the rebounding column of his stat sheet says.
Yeah.
Brook Lopez is more interested in winning basketball games.
Yep. That's the stat that matters at his point in his career right now.
So we're talking on a fresh 24-second violation. If Brook catches this ball and gives it to Giannis, you're talking about 20 or 21 seconds left on the shot clock, or 22 seconds when Giannis gets the ball versus 24, 23 and a half. Steve said that's been the case with Brook when he arrived in Milwaukee, and that's, like Jake said, the contested shots thing. That's been a thing since he's been a Milwaukee Buck.
Yep.
Again, Brook Lopez boxing out. Bobby Portis gets that rebound, not Brook Lopez.
Yep.
Despite Brook Lopez being the one to box out Vucevic and taps this ball to Bobby.
He could easily grab that with one hand and then hand it to Chris Middleton, but just taps it right over.
And it doesn't allow Vucevic to get a hand on it. Again, Brook Lopez could not give a singular shit about what the rebounding tally in his box score is.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to see it. The last one that I have is an offensive one. He probably could have grabbed that one too.
How many times does he do that a game, man?
Probably 2, 3.
At least.
But again, this does not count as a rebound. But this tap out gets Damian Lillard a wide open look at a 3. And just because he doesn't make it doesn't mean that Brook Lopez didn't do anything good.
No.
But again, Damian Lillard gets credit for an offensive rebound on this possession.
Yep.
Not Brook Lopez. So just watch out for these things. The next time you're watching a Bucks game, just watch out for these things. For Brook Lopez boxing out so that Dame and Giannis can grab rebounds, for tapping rebounds to players on his team to keep the ball away from opponents while he's boxing out, to being able to tap the ball to his teammates so the transition gets started faster. These are important things. They are winning basketball plays.
Mm-hmm.
They're things that go beyond the stat sheet, which is what we are trying to encourage people to do. That's what we're trying to appreciate about players, just beyond what they do on stat sheets. That's what we're trying to do. So Jake is going to go through one more guy yet and talk about Damian Lillard's defense. The last myth that we're going to bust is that Damian Lillard is bad on defense.
Yeah. So again, we're going overall 3.2 point, less than 10, less than 6. So for overall, he's people are making 5.5 shots. He's defending 12.2, and they're shooting 45.1%. I mean, that's pretty good. You're holding a guy under 50% shooting. For a guy who gets this rap as basically like a cone on defense, where he just ran around, people just shoot layups on him all day. They make a bunch of threes on him. He actually is a pretty good defender. You go to 2-point shots. People are making 3.6. He's contesting 6.5. Defensive field goal percentage is 55.2. So he's contesting a lot of 2-point shots, and they're making 53.4%. Now, his size does come into factor when you get down low, obviously. He's 6'2", 6'3". But as you get farther away from the basket, obviously it's better, right? So 3-point shots, people are only making 1.9 on him, and he's contesting 5.7. So you're talking about people not even making 2, and he's almost contesting 6. They're shooting 35% on him, and he is contesting 33.3% of them. So it's tough with the new rules. Now, something that we have to add in here is deflections. Dame has 2.9 deflections per game. That's 27th in the NBA and leads the Bucks. He's 21st in the NBA if you take out guys who have played less than 25 games. He's 17th if you take out guys with less than 35 games. And he's 15th in the NBA if you take out guys who've only played 40 games. So shout out to my man Tyler. He got those for me while I was at work today. He top 15 in the NBA in deflections. If you guys who've only played 40 games, that's pretty damn good for a guy who's supposed to be trash on defense.
You're talking about a guy who he's not going to be an all NBA defender, but you're talking about a guy who's playing active defense. And I brought up a clip from the Kings game that he put clamps on Keegan Murray. Like, he plays good defensive possessions. I wouldn't call him overall a good defender, but people got to stop acting like he plays zero defense.
Yeah,
And it's not like he's not giving effort. It's not like he's fucking James Harden who's just conserving his energy to play offense.
Yeah.
That's not what Dame's doing.
Yeah.
Dame is an active defender.
Yeah, he's getting his hands on some basketballs, deflecting them, maybe forcing some turnovers, maybe forcing some uneasy moments for the other team's offense. Breaking the rhythm up at times. You got Brook Lopez playing elite drop style defense. Now, if Giannis comes back and he continues on his arc of trying to go for Defensive Player of the Year, which I think he really is trying to take seriously, the Bucks, and Kyle Kuzma has actually made comments about this within the last couple of weeks. He talks about that the Bucks can be elite on defense, and I think they can. Everybody keeps talking about the Bucks like they don't play defense at all. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe they're 11th in defensive rating right now in the entire NBA. So you're talking about a team that's just barely outside the top 10, scratching the top 10, and people are forgetting about them as a championship contender when they have one of the 3 best players in the league. It makes no sense to me. I'm sure you're going to look up the defensive rating, right?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah.
Defensive rating. They are 11th. You are correct.
Yeah, that was the last time I saw it after their game. So it makes sense. Yeah. So this is a team that could absolutely win it all. So don't get discouraged by that 2-8 start. Looking at their record where they're sitting in the Eastern Conference, people have some feelings about the East. Think it's not as good as the West. Listen,
still got another 30 games to go yet.
And I don't care what conference you play in. Only one team from each conference makes it to the finals. And then one team stands on top of the mountain. You give me a chance with a top 3 player in this league and a guy who wants to win real bad and he's a top 75 player, I'm in.
So Steve brought up, he said, I don't know the numbers, but I'd say the Bucks paint points allowed is not a problem. Credit to Brooke. Steve, you would be correct. The Milwaukee Bucks currently allow the 6th fewest points in the paint per game.
That's pretty good.
They allow 46.4 point paints per game. That is less than 5 points away from number 1 Oklahoma City, who allows 41.9.
And Oklahoma City probably has that because they're killing everybody every single night, so people are trying to shoot threes to keep up with them.
I mean, they have some super tough defenders over there, but
they do.
I mean, there's really not a case to be made that the Bucks aren't defending the paint well.
Yep.
The Bucks are also 13th in opponent fast break points a game. I think that's something that Kyle Kuzma is going to help with, as we've talked about that, his youth and just being better on defense. Overall, I think the Bucks are going to improve slightly from the first half, especially if you take out those first 10 games, which you don't get to take them out of the record. But if you take out the record of it, just strictly the numbers of the record, I think the Bucks are going to be an improved team over the second half of the season. And again, I understand if you want to be super upset about it, I'm understanding if you're going to be like a little bit upset about it. The Bucks not going 100% all in on 2024, 2025. And if you are a person who thinks that the Bucks were cooked or done or their window is closed after those first 10 games or the first 3 months of the season or up until now, why would you want them to go all in anyways if you didn't think they were capable of winning anything?
Fair point.
So I understand this soft all in on this year and having the flexibility to go fully all in next year.
Yeah.
All righty. Jake and I will be back next Wednesday, same time. Steve, thank you for all the comments. Brad, thanks for the comments as well. Taylor as well. That's why we do the shows live, so we can comment along. And Steve asked some really good questions, which helped give us even a little bit more context. Jake and I will be back next Wednesday with Mike to talk more Bucks and Badgers. Until then, go Bucks and Badgers. And then March 4th is going to be our next Packers show. We are creeping up on it. That's going to be our free agency show and a couple trades for each of us. So just know behind the scenes, we are working strongly on our NFL draft prep. That's a big part of what we do. Super busy on that, and we are also working on our Brewers primer and how we're going to relay our information for what we are looking for the upcoming Brewers season. So that is also going on there as well. Andrew said can't improve much. You're talking about the NBA Cup champs. You are absolutely right. They are that. So they've already won a trophy this year.
That's fair.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, guys. And we will see you guys next week.